Welcome to Trail Time Stories. We hope you enjoy the scenery as we read stories that step out of the normal day-to-day mundane routine and help put ourselves in the character of those that have been briefly pulled from their sanctuary of safety and all too often times their sanity. If you like the content, please like and subscribe as there will be much more content in the near future. Indiana Ghost Stories Volume 2. The following true ghost stories were posted on yourghoststories.com. Story number 1 was posted by BriarRose444 on May the 16th, 2019. A day before my birthday, my ex-boyfriend from middle school, high school, passed away suddenly. He was murdered for reasons we still don't know, or at least the media doesn't. The murderer has been arrested. When I found out, I was shaken but not completely surprised, as I heard he had gotten into drugs. Anyway, a couple of days later, I spoke with my meditation class leader, who is very in tune with spirits, energies, etc. I told her about how I felt. We had tons of unfinished business and things left unsaid. He was always the type to pop back into my life unexpectedly every other year or so. He had even just added me as a friend again on Facebook. As I was telling her about my grief on losing him and about spirits, I heard an odd noise coming from the ceiling, but I dismissed it. Then I heard a heavy thud sound come from the next room. Her house is very small, and it was just us. I felt the floor vibrate. I asked her, "Okay, you heard that right?" I sensed it was a man who had come in the front door. She said no. I began to feel very heavy, like someone was with us. I felt energies before. She asked me if I felt like my ex was with us. I said I don't know, but I felt that way. She then began to feel heavy and got goosebumps and said she thought it was him. We acknowledged it may or may not be him, but she told me to speak as though it was, and to tell him to go to the light with God. This didn't last long, and soon the heaviness feeling passed. She told me to stay aware, as his spirit may still have a lot of unfinished business. I was skeptical, but a little creeped out. Right after, I went to our tiny pharmacy to pick up my birth control pills. I felt drained and very out of it. However, the song Free Falling was playing in the background. It was an acoustic cover that seemed to repeat Free Falling over and over. Normally I don't take notice of songs, but there was something that drew me to it. It felt eerie, yet calming. I later looked up the lyrics since I never heard the song before, and to my surprise, it fit incredibly well with the situation with my ex-boyfriend. What gave me chills was the last verse, that he's going to leave this world for a while. Again, I felt eerie, but I wasn't sold that it was him, since I can be skeptical. The next morning, I told my coworker, who is very open-minded on this subject. When I was explaining it to her, I started feeling heavy again, and tiny tapping noises started to come from her office window. At one point, she left the room and said, "X's name? You'll have to do better than that to get my attention." Well, that moment came that afternoon. My coworker friend came back from lunch and ran after me to get my attention. She had met up with someone for lunch that coincidentally knew my husband. As they made that connection, my friend started talking about me, and as soon as she said my name a few times, Free Falling started playing on the radio. I was shocked. To this day, I can't say with certainty that it was him, but I feel completely satisfied with this conclusion. I no longer feel as though we have unfinished business. I feel at peace and believe that if it was him, he is as well. What are your thoughts? Thank you for reading. Story number 2 was posted by Star347 on April the 30th, 2019. When I was in 6th grade, so like 12 years old, I was invited by one of the popular girls to her slumber party for her birthday, and I was very excited to go because it was my first year at a private Catholic school, and I was still trying to make friends. Everyone was looking forward to one girl coming in particular. She'd switched schools, so I'd never met her before, because she was bringing her special table to the party. They said this table could answer your questions, but I've always been skeptical by nature, and so I was doubtful, but I just rolled with it. The night of the party, the girl we'll call April arrived with her table. It wasn't anything spectacular, just an old fold-up square card table that had belonged to her grandma. It had a vinyl covering on the top that had a wood grain pattern, with a large diamond shape in a different pattern of wood grain, and yet another wood grain pattern inside of that. After the usual eating of pizza and watching of movies, we went upstairs to the birthday girl's room where April set up her table. Everyone gathered around it, and they explained to me that you had to close your eyes and concentrate, while lightly resting 2 fingers on top of the table and repeating with everyone in unison, "Rise table, rise table, rise," over and over. Obviously, I didn't take it seriously and giggled through it while everyone else was serious. And then, the table rose up on 2 legs and just hovered there. The 2 legs had to be at least 12 inches off the ground. I was obviously stunned when I opened my eyes and looked for any possible explanation as to how this was possible, but there was none. As long as we kept our index and middle fingers lightly on top, it stayed like that. The girl started to ask the table random questions, and if the answer was yes, it would lower the side that was raised up and almost touch the ground, and go back up and wait until the next question. If the answer was no, it would lower and would just stay raised up. Of course, we asked stupid questions, but the thing that really struck me was when they tried to guess which boy I liked. Okay, stupid, but I was 12. And I can tell you that nobody knew who I liked, as I was the new girl and kept it to myself. As they guessed different boys, this table did not indicate a yes answer until they finally got around to asking if I liked the boy I actually had a crush on. How did it know? No one knew, and trust me, I was discreet about it. Things turned darker after a while, and we tried to ascertain the origin of whatever was actually communicating with us. It felt like it was sucking us in deeper and deeper. We were tired and tried to say goodbye to it, but it wouldn't let us, and seemed to get angry because it started to move up and down violently when answering a yes to our questions. The girl April had told us the one rule was that you couldn't just take your hands off the table. You had to say goodbye properly and release it. Through asking yes or no questions, it said that it was a young child who still slept in a crib. Red flag. How could a child that young understand any of our questions, really? Who was smothered in a aforesaid crib in the 1800s in England, and it wanted us to travel there to find its bones and bury it properly. Somebody asked it eventually if it knew who Jesus was, and it gave an answer of no. And then when someone took a precious moment's crucifix off the wall and set it on the table, it shook violently to knock it onto the floor. And that was pretty much enough for me at that point. Of course, I couldn't sleep later, while everyone else slept soundly, and I was still scared even when I went home the next day. As an adult in my 30s now, firmly rooted in logic and reason, when I look back I have more questions than answers. All I can say for certain is that this did happen, just as I've written above. It was no illusion, and nothing that the 10 of us collectively imagined that we were experiencing. I believe it was something very sinister that tried to suck in a bunch of little girls by pretending it was a child. Who knows what it wanted? Nothing good. More than anything for me, this first experience opened a door for me to have many other ones, including things like my talking candle, which perhaps I'll write about some other time on here. What do you think it was? Have you ever heard of or seen anything similar? Story number 3 was posted by KYSXXS on April the 7th, 2019. I have just moved into Logansport, Indiana. This is the place where my mother and grandfather both grew up. We also moved into the house that they both grew up in, which it has, of course, been fixed up. I have had many other sightings, but this is the most recent one and the most terrifying. I am 16, so of course I like to be out at night, even just in my backyard. I have recently noticed a figure standing outside of the fence surrounding our yard. My first thought was a person trying to scare me, so I ran into the house and told my mother while grabbing a baseball bat just in case. We both ran out and no one was there. We then went back inside and called the police just in case. The next time I saw it was about 2 weeks after that encounter. I was in my room trying to sleep when I turned and saw the cloaked figure standing in the corner. Only this time the eyes were a deep red, almost like the shade of blood, but glowing lightly. I couldn't move once I saw the eyes. I couldn't scream or do anything. Then there was a low whisper that I couldn't make out. And when I asked what it wanted, it responded with, "May God have mercy on your soul." It was so loud I couldn't bear it and started screaming. No one else heard it but me. That morning I noticed scratches on my stomach in the form of 3 lines. I am still terrified to this day and haven't seen it again. This is now 3 weeks after the incident, but I have noticed my mood has never been the same, and I constantly feel as if I'm being followed. I have been seeing others more recently. When I see someone and tell my mother about it, she tells me she doesn't know what I'm talking about. I hear the voices of many in my head. I simply cannot escape, for I do not believe in priests. Story number 4 was posted by Ominouszone on December the 4th, 2018. I purchased a house over a year ago which was in a dilapidated state when purchased. As such, I spent the first year or so only doing landscaping and general cleaning. Needing to commit more time to the project, the wife and I decided to stay there. It was livable, just not the most luxurious. The house had been abandoned for several years prior to our purchase occupancy. One day I told the wife I was going to go into the attic to clean it out because I knew there were books and some odds and ends left behind in the attic. I was hoping something might be of value. The wife literally told me not to bother, jokingly stated that I was going to wake Annabelle or something, referring to the movie. I laughed and went upstairs to search for treasure. There ended up being less than I thought, but I did find a box of books. However, looking down at the box, I was sick to my stomach, seeing a Ouija board in the box, and assuming that it had, of course, been used in the house or on the land. I have had encounters with such negativeness before, and through prayer and exorcised oil and metals have been able to ward them off, only over lengthy, frustrating periods. I informed the wife, who was quite upset, and said I shouldn't have gone up there. I went back up with holy water and exorcised metals and nailed them into areas of the attic and sprinkled the oil and water everywhere. I then poured water on the board and removed it from the house, using a garbage bag to touch it, not wanting to so much as make physical contact. I then threw it outside where it would remain until I told a friend about the event. The friend was intrigued and asked for the board. I hesitantly agreed to transport it to his home, where he took it and had a number of paranormal experiences of his own immediately after, until he got rid of the board himself. This is another story. Even getting rid of the board, however, things were happening at the house. The door to the outside would open on its own late at night and early morning. Things would fall that weren't able to fall. Despite all the odd things, I made all efforts to logically justify and explain them, and found comfort in the explanations. However, one night I got up in the middle of the night to use the washroom, and in walking into the bathroom, my foot grazed something in the threshold to the bathroom. I squatted down in the dark and observed what I thought was a nail, exact dead center of the wooden threshold and a second slightly to its left. Being late and tired and not wanting to do anything about it, I just figured a nail somehow worked its way out and up through the new traffic in the house. I put a roll of toilet paper over it to make sure if the wife got up she wouldn't kick it or step on it, and decided to take care of it in the morning. In the morning I had time to think about the event, though, and swore that my buddy who installed the bathroom tile took all the nails out of the threshold at the time that were all sticking up or crooked. I helped him myself. I told my father-in-law about the story, as he and my wife's uncle installed my toilet and sink, said there were no nails sticking up or present in the threshold, that they had laid on that floor and in the area, and they were positive. Talking to the wife, we both also agreed that, having started living in the house since August, and it now being September, there was no way those nails were there. I was definitely freaked out by the situation and eventually got motivated to grab a hammer and nail them back into the threshold. I took a swing. Nothing. I took a harder swing. It didn't budge. I then realized these weren't nails but screws, and construction deck type screws. with a lock pattern on the head which I didn't even have a tool for. These screws had unscrewed themselves up out of the wood. I wasn't sure if an entity tied to the board did this, but if so, how? I removed those screws with my buddy over a year earlier when he installed the tile. I, the wife, father-in-law, and uncle all said they weren't there just a week ago. These screws hadn't existed in that spot for over a year, yet now they were there again and unscrewed. I've been reading a lot on multi-dimensional realities, holographic realities, etc., and how we may be phasing in and out of different ones all of the time based on our spiritual evolution. Did I cross into a different one in which the screws were never taken out? Was I in the same reality and an entity having done this to try and hurt us? I am still confused to this day if it was an entity, something to do with the holographic nature of reality, or both. Story number 5 was posted by Dark Cloud VA on September the 2nd, 2018. This happened in 2016. In 2006, I lost a sister to cancer. She's buried in my hometown of Mishawaka in the cemetery called Fairview. Now, I've had things happen here before, but this cemetery isn't where this activity is taking place. Across the street, there's another cemetery, an old Catholic cemetery. Whenever we go to my sister's grave, my one friend always felt like she felt a force pulling her to the Catholic cemetery across the street. We had never gone, until one day we decided to explore it. Now me and my friends like to go on our own ghost hunts in the area, and we've had a ton of things happen, but those are stories for another day. It was a cloudy day. I don't remember the exact day or time, but it was in the afternoon. We were exploring the cemetery my sister is buried in when my friend, we'll call her Lisa, felt the feeling she always felt whenever she went there. So we decided to go over and check things out. Little did we know of the chain of events that were about to take place. There were 5 of us at the time. We walked into the entrance and didn't feel a thing. Then I saw a fence with an open gate that went back even farther to some of the older graves. We go inside and instantly we feel something heavy. Everyone's worried, but we press on. My stupid self at one point said I would hold off whatever would or could come while they ran. That was the start. We were walking around exploring when I walked past the stone mausoleum. I could feel something trying to communicate with me, but I shook it off. I tell my friends what happened and they all head over to look at it. There was a small hole in the door. My friends decided to look in. Nothing happens. But then I look in. I feel, then get pushed back by a wave of energy. I then get a bad feeling and we start to leave. As we were leaving, we looked through the fence to see a tall shadow figure standing next to the mausoleum. We stop for a second and stare in awe. Now, one of my friends with us can read auras. Certain colors tell what the person is thinking or feeling. This one's aura was blood red. It was pissed off. It starts to walk toward us. We start running to the entrance scared. The thing is, though, I'm pretty sure it projected its feelings onto me because I could feel its anger. The more mad it got, the more mad I got. It got to the point where I was cursing under my breath, telling it to leave us alone. At one point I was about to go back and confront it. Thankfully my friend stopped me and we continued running. We were parked in the cemetery called Fairview across the street. We ran out of the Catholic cemetery to Fairview and the figure actually followed us out. We ran into the entrance of Fairview. It tried to enter, but something is keeping it out. We get into the car and book it out of there. As we drive, I see the figure just staring us down. To this day, I have no clue what that thing could have been. I've never felt anger like that before, and I've been to that cemetery a few times since then. It has never popped back up. Did we disturb something's slumber, or was something there just toying with us? All I know is it's something I'll never forget. Thank you for watching and listening to today's video and story. We know your time is valuable and really do appreciate that you spent some of it with us today. If you haven't already, then please like and subscribe as it helps us greatly. We hope to see you again soon. Have a great day or evening. Trail Time Stories out.